Welcome to Come Follow Me Primary. This week we'll study the lesson called Jehovah Was With Joseph, covering Genesis chapters 37 through 41. Let's begin. Abraham had Isaac, Isaac had Jacob, whom God called Israel, and he fathered 12 sons who would become the 12 tribes of Israel. Their names are Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Joseph, and Benjamin. In this lesson, we'll talk more about Joseph. Joseph was one of Jacob's youngest sons, and his father loved him very much. He even made him a special coat of many colors that showed his affection. But his brothers began to feel jealous. They didn't like that their father favored him, especially when Joseph told them dreams that suggested he would one day have an important position. Their jealousy grew so much that his brothers planned to get rid of him. At first they thought of something terrible, but finally they decided to sell him as a slave. Then they deceived their father Jacob, making him believe that Joseph had died. Israel suffered deeply. He wept for his son for a long time, not knowing that Joseph was still alive. Meanwhile, Joseph was taken to Egypt, far from his family and his home. What seemed like the end of his story was actually the beginning of something God would use to bless many. This part of the story shows how anger and envy can divide a family, but also prepares the way for the Lord to later work a miracle of forgiveness and reconciliation. Joseph's life was full of unexpected changes. One day he was his father's beloved son, the next day he was sold as a slave. Later, when he did what was right and refused to disobey the commandments, he was wrongfully accused and sent to prison. However, there is one phrase that repeats throughout his story: Jehovah was with Joseph. That didn't mean he had no trials, but that in the midst of them, the Lord strengthened and blessed him. Joseph decided to remain faithful. He worked diligently, was honest, rejected sin, and trusted God even when no one else seemed to help him. And the Lord gave him wisdom, favor with others, and eventually raised him to an important position in Egypt, where he saved many lives during a great famine. Joseph's story teaches that the Lord's presence doesn't always remove difficulties, but he does walk with us through them. Sometimes we notice it in the peace we feel, in the strength to keep going, or in small blessings that appear at key moments. Like Joseph, each person can choose now to stay close to the Lord. Trials will come, but if we choose to trust God and keep His commandments, we can be assured that He will never abandon us. From a young age, Joseph learned that the Lord could communicate through dreams. He himself received dreams he didn't fully understand at the time, but he trusted they came from God. Years later, when he was in prison, other men had dreams they couldn't understand. Joseph did something very important. Before attempting to interpret them, he recognized that the interpretation came from God. He did not seek glory for himself. He humbly said that it was the Lord who gave the answers. Later, when Pharaoh had dreams that no one could explain, Joseph again declared that wisdom came from God. He was faithful, humble, and willing to listen, and the Lord guided and inspired him to give the correct interpretation. Joseph's story teaches that revelation doesn't come from pride or our own intelligence. It comes when a person is faithful, humble, and recognizes their need for God. Today, the Lord also guides His children. Sometimes He does so through the Spirit, through the Scriptures, or through inspired leaders. When someone chooses to obey what they've already received, the Lord can entrust them with more light and direction. If we're faithful like Joseph, the Lord can guide and inspire us step by step. When Joseph worked in Potiphar's house, he faced a strong temptation. His master's wife tried to convince him to do something wrong. Joseph was far from his family and no one seemed to be watching. He could have thought there'd be no consequences, but Joseph responded very clearly. He remembered his master trusted him, and more importantly, that sinning would offend God. For him, that was a problem, even if no one else knew. The temptation didn't happen just once, it was persistent. Day after day, the woman tried to persuade him. However, Joseph decided to stand firm. He didn't play with temptation or try to get close to the line. When the situation became more dangerous, Joseph did something very wise. He fled. He ran out. He didn't try to negotiate or stay to argue. He simply left. For doing the right thing, he was falsely accused and ended up in jail, but even there, the Lord was with him. Joseph's story teaches that obeying the law of chastity and all commandments protects the heart and spirit. It also teaches that when temptation is strong, the bravest thing isn't always to stay, but to walk away. With the Lord's help, each person can decide beforehand to do what's right and be ready to hear when necessary. That is true strength. When Pharaoh had dreams no one could understand, Joseph was called to interpret them. He humbly declared that wisdom came from God. He then explained that 7 years of plenty would come, followed by 7 years of severe famine. But Joseph didn't just interpret the dream, he also gave wise counsel. During the good years, they should store food for the difficult years. Thanks to that preparation, Egypt survived the famine and helped many others. This story teaches an important principle. The Lord doesn't just warn, He also teaches us to prepare. Sometimes difficulties can be economic, family, or spiritual, and preparing doesn't mean living in fear, but acting with wisdom. Preparing can mean saving, learning, working diligently, and above all, strengthening faith while things are going well. When we keep the commandments and listen to the Lord's guidance, we are storing up strength for the future. Just as Joseph helped prepare an entire people, the Lord can also guide us today to be ready for any challenge. When we trust in Him and follow His counsel, we can face tomorrow with peace and security. Joseph's family had a problem. There was jealousy and resentment. His brothers were upset because their father showed preference for him, and the envy grew so much they stopped speaking to him peacefully. Harsh words and anger divided the home until they made a very sad decision to sell their own brother. However, the story didn't end there. Over the years, and after many trials, the Lord blessed Joseph in Egypt. He became an important leader, helping Pharaoh prepare for a great famine. When the famine came, many people traveled to Egypt seeking food, including Joseph's own family. His brothers didn't know that this powerful man was the same brother they had sold. Joseph had the chance to take revenge, but he chose something better. He chose to forgive. Instead of treating them harshly, he helped them and finally revealed himself. The family was reunited and Jacob was able to embrace his son again. The story teaches that jealousy and hurtful words can divide a family, but forgiveness and kindness can heal it. Jesus Christ is the perfect example of a peacemaker. He teaches us to forgive and love even after pain. Each person can choose to be a peacemaker in their home because when someone chooses kindness, they can change not just a moment, but the future of the entire family. In the end, Jose's family story teaches us that mistakes and hard times don't have to be the end. With the Lord's help, anger can turn into forgiveness and division into unity. When we choose to be kind, speak with peace, and follow Jesus Christ's example, He can heal our homes and strengthen our families. It's always possible to start again when we let God guide our hearts. We are Daniela Trejo and Fernando Cabaletti, and we make Come Follow Me Primary Kids. Stay for the trivia.
This week we learned from chapters 37 through 41 of Genesis. Let's test what you know.
How many sons did Jacob have who formed the tribes of Israel? A. 10, B. 11, C. 12, D. 7. Correct. From them came the 12 tribes of Israel. Why did Joseph's brothers start to envy him? A. He was the strongest. B. Jacob favored him and gave him a special robe. C. He had more money. D. He was the oldest. Good. Envy can divide a family if not controlled. What did Joseph do when Potiphar's wife tried to persuade him to do something wrong? A. Ignored her. B. Asked Potiphar for advice. C. Hid. D. Fled the situation. Correct. Sometimes the wisest thing is to get away from temptation. When Joseph was sold by his brothers, to what country was he taken as a slave? A. Canaan. B. Egypt. C. Babylon. D. Jerusalem. Good. Even though Joseph was far from home, the Lord continued guiding his life and preparing something good for his future. Let's raise the stakes a bit, so gather the whole family. What did Pharaoh's dreams mean that Joseph interpreted? A 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. B. Wars were coming. C. Egypt would have many kings. D. There would be a great feast. Correct. God warned them so the people could prepare. When Joseph saw his brothers again many years later in Egypt, what did he decide to do? A. Punish them. B. Ignore them. C. Take revenge. D. Forgive and help them. Correct. Forgiveness can even heal families. How many did you get right? Tell us in the comments. Today, I'm going to teach you how to make a new drawing. This week, we're learning the story of Joseph, so we're going to learn to draw him with his coat of many colors. You'll need a white sheet of paper, a pencil, pen, or marker to draw, and colored pencils or markers. Let's begin. We'll start with the shape of Joseph's face by making a shape very similar to the letter U. Below this shape, we're going to make two curves. This will be his neck. And to join them, we'll make a small horizontal line and then connect them at a point. We're going to put his ears, one on each side. And inside, we're going to make a little mark like this. In the center of the face, we'll make the nose like a little hook. We'll put on a smile. And since our Joseph is going to be very happy about his colorful coat, let's add these expression lines. They'll make the smile stand out even more. We're going to make one eye like a circle, while the other one is going to be closed. We'll draw the eyebrows above. And we'll start forming his hair. This part doesn't have to look exactly like mine. We're just going to make some irregular lines. To start forming the tunic, we're going to make vertical lines. This one is going to go all the way to the end of our page. Now we're going to make the shoulders like two diagonal lines. We're going to try to make them more or less the same size so that one of his arms doesn't end up bigger than the other. And from here, we're going to start making an L shape. Jose is going to have his arms at his waist, so we make this line. Before closing it, we do it on the other side. Now we're going to put the torso on this side, or, well, the rest of the tunic. We estimate it to be more or less the same size. And we're going to duplicate this L shape on the inside much smaller. And to make his hands without overcomplicating it, we'll just do them like this. Now we're missing some details. For example, a belt or ribbon and some folds in the clothes, some seams here, and most importantly, divide the tunic with small vertical lines like these. This will help you fill each space with a different color. Same with this arm. It follows the shape of the arm but with lines going down. And there we go, that's our Joseph. Now let's fill him in with color. And done, that's our Joseph with his tunic of many colors. I hope you had as much fun as I did making this drawing. And remember, you can send us your drawing to vincentprimariasud@gmail.com. See you next time. It's time for shoutouts. Thanks for drawing with us this week. We're sending a shoutout to
Camila Aspe, del barrio Hospital, en Chile. Zair Ezequiel Valencia Cortés, desde Ecuador, Esmeraldas, en barrio Tolita. Antonia, de Uruguay. Antonia Rivera, de Uruguay. Ángel Zamora, en Las Vegas, Nevada. Liam y Andrick, de Atlixco, barrio Madero. Kanisha y Kalieska, de Lima, Perú. Samuel, Belén y Steven Chicará, de barrio Quetzal, en Guatemala. Laura Soledo, en Chile. Para los niños del barrio Vista Hermosa, en Atlixco, Puebla. Kylie, Jali, Sara Eridani y Suri Hernández. Mónica Cecilia Castellón Cano, del barrio Victoria, en la Estaca Industrial, Ciudad de México. Itan Santiago, del barrio Maya, Estaca Guaymuras, en Tegucigalpa, Honduras. Mía Muñoz, de Santiago, Chile. Agustín Torres, barrio La Blanca, La Cisterna, en Santiago, Chile. Y a Guadalupe Gómez, barrio La Blanca, Santiago, Chile. Francisco Gael, de Guadalajara, barrio Central. Santiago Morales, de Honduras. Desde el barrio Juchitán, en Oaxaca, Juliet, Germán y Daniela. Sujei y Servando Chávez Magadán, del barrio Lomas, en Nuevo Casas Grandes, Chihuahua. Brittany Candelario Galán, desde República Dominicana. Alexia Sierra, del barrio Islas Malvinas, Estaca Sarmiento, en Buenos Aires, Argentina. Valeria Agustina Caballero Benítez, de Paraguay. Sara y Amber, desde Mexicali, barrio Bugambilias. Maite y Amy, del barrio Brasil, Estaca Renca, en Santiago, Chile. Amelia y Moisés David, de República Dominicana. Sebastián, Daniela y Santiago, de Guayaquil, Ecuador. Emma Sofía Chen Sarabia, de Guatemala. Sebastián Tituaña, del barrio Clearfield 20, en Utah. Gemma Noemí y Edson Emilio Tovar Domínguez, de la rama Ixmiquilpan 2, en la Estaca Tezontepec, en México. Abraham y Sofía Semler, desde La Paz, Bolivia. Juliet Celeste Alcántara Castro, del barrio Amilcingo, en Cuautla, Morelos. David Mendoza Colio, del barrio Pirámides, en Querétaro. Maya Elizabeth Quiñones, desde Argentina, Misiones. Elijah Smith, del barrio Airdrie, en Escocia. Saori Yunuen Rocha Carrillo, desde la Ciudad de México, del barrio Aztlán, de la Estaca Industrial. Emma Alexandra Hernández Yepis. Marlon, del barrio Villafranca, en España. Andrés, del barrio Provo Peak 8, en Utah. Mía Chávez, rama Mejillones, en Chile. Moisés y Amelia, de República Dominicana. Diego González, del barrio Alamedas. Daniel Choi, de Guatemala. Eduardo Yopan Costa, de Santa Catarina, Brasil. Marian Jaques Domínguez, de San Luis Río Colorado, en Sonora. Rebeca Ortiz, desde Ecuador. Megumi y Kurt Vidangos, de La Paz, Bolivia. Barrio Achumani, Estaca Calacoto. Diego Miguel, del barrio de Venezuela, Estaca Nimajuyu, en la ciudad de Guatemala. Joseph y Randy Robalino, de Guayaquil, Guayas, Ecuador. Santiago y Camila Peña, del barrio Wiesbaden, de la Estaca Friedrichsdorf, o algo así, en Alemania. Ruth y Milán, de la Estaca Gómez Laguna, en el barrio Sarabia, en Lerdo, Durango. Ismarly Rodríguez y Natán Rodríguez, de Santiago, República Dominicana. Barrio Bellavista, Estaca Santiago Sur. Jorge y Dariana Ascoy, del barrio El Milagro, Trujillo, Perú. Marco Tulio Ramos Sandoval, del barrio San José, Estaca Florida, en Guatemala. Y Yari Valentina, del barrio Bolívar, Estaca Pueblo Libre, Lima, Perú. Lucía Vilorio, en Honduras. Sergio Benjamín González Silva, del barrio Partido Alto, Estaca Tarapoto, en Perú. Fabricio, Rama Tuparuete de Santa Cruz, Bolivia. Noah Hernández, barrio 24 de diciembre, Estaca Tocumen, en Panamá. Andrea Espinal Núñez, desde Honduras, Tegucigalpa. Trinidad y Alison Velázquez, de Estaca Puerto Varas, barrio Imperial. Mildred, Claudia Raquel y Dulce Mendoza, del barrio Panajachel, Estaca Sololá, en Guatemala. Liam, de Utah. Evelyn Jared y Vishnu Patraca, del barrio Cosamaloapan, Estaca Tuxtepec, en México. Calieska Martínez Pérez, de la rama Chancay, en Lima, Perú. Christopher, del barrio Tazomal, en El Salvador. Natalia Abigail López García. Y un saludo para Kanisha, Kazumi y Calieska, de Lima, Perú. Santiago Lorenzo, Luciana Camila y Mateo Sebastián, del barrio El Triunfo, Estacatumbes, en Perú. Mía Chávez Reinaga, en la rama Mejillones, Antofagasta, Chile. Erandi Cedeño y Taily Tapia, del barrio Forjadores, en la Estaca La Libertad, Puebla, México. Faith y Job López, del barrio San Roque, en Lima, Perú. Bella Antonella Romero Cucaita, rama Llano Lindo, en Yopal, Casanare, Colombia. Santiago Hernández, Anenecuilco, Morelos. Macarena, del barrio Lurelti, en Paraguay. Sara Eridani Mejía Juárez, del barrio Vista Hermosa, en la Estaca Atlixco. Liam Andrés Abril Moreno, en Cali, Colombia. Lucía, de Honduras, Tegucigalpa, barrio Las Casitas. Fátima Hernández, del barrio Hidalgo, Estaca Palmas. Kylie y Hailey Ramos León, de la Estaca Atlixco. Mateo Córdoba, barrio San Pedro, Estaca Torreblanca, en Lima, Perú. Ángel y Juan Manuel Rojas Nava, en la rama Cimatlán, Estaca, Oaxaca, México. Joshua y Samantha Veiga, del barrio Ecuador, de la Estaca San Borondón, barrio Metrópolis. Sarita Mendoza, de Guatemala. Aaron Sandoval, de Utah.
We really appreciate you joining us each week watching these videos. If your drawing hasn't shown up yet, don't worry, it'll surely be in the next video. Don't forget to send us a photo of your drawing with your name and where you're watching from. See you next time.